Hi, this is Sarah Giletti for Punk Empire DIY. I'm here at the legendary Foufoune Électrique in Montreal, interviewing legendary punk rock artist Joe Queer of the Queers. I've been doing this for over 25 years, right?
Well, touring since '93. That was our first tour. Before that, we were kind of just joking around, and then we got on Lookout Records when Green Day was on there, and then all of a sudden, boom, we got swept up in that thing. So the band wasn't like a steady thing at all, but I played off and on since then, yeah, since high school. But so, yeah, it was weird for us. We had a weird thing where we played in Boston in the bars, and then all of a sudden got on Lookout through Ben Weasel, who was a good friend of mine, still is, and you know, when Green Day took off, it was like, wow, you know. So I did one tour with Screeching Weasel, and I looked around. I used to own a restaurant, and I was like, man, told my dad, I go, man, I want to go do this. So he told me to do it. So here I am, still touring. Wow. So when I'm home, I listen to a lot of the either the Beach Boys a lot, Black Flag Damage. I still listen to that. Jesus and Mary Chain's like one of my favorite bands now. I listen to them a lot. And they're like my favorite band now. But you know, music is like when we get off tour, when we're driving down the street, people think it's just music, and we don't listen to it in the van much at all because we're too burned out by it. I have a recording studio too, so it's like, oh man. But so when I go home, I don't listen to as much music as I used to. A lot of times I'll listen to either talk radio or I listen to like stuff from the 40s and 50s, like Glenn Miller and stuff like that. She's got no tits, 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 but she's got ass.
You're a huge Ramones fan, and I read you opened for the Ramones in '86.
We opened for the Ramones, I think, 5 times, through the years. We got to know Joey because we would always get backstage and bug them at shows. You know, their security was never that. It wasn't like a Rolling Stones concert. You could always bullshit your way backstage and then say, hey, I'm Joe from the Queers. So I got to know Joey a little towards the end of his life. Where I would talk to him when he was sick. He'd call up in the morning and we'd talk music. And that was another great lesson for me. I mean, here's a guy who was in a band that changed not only music but the world, really, the Ramones. And, you know, he'd call me about 10 in the morning and talk about music. You know, like, did I see Martha Hoople or was I into that stuff? And I realized suddenly it wasn't about how famous he was. You know, I remember him telling me that David Bowie had called him and Iggy Pop. And so he was still a fan, you know, and I told him I saw Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson, and he's like, oh, I didn't see that. And, you know, he was a fan, but, you know, he had asked me to work on some songs for his solo album. And so anyway, I realized it wasn't about how famous he was, how much money he had, how many girls he could sleep with, any of that. He just woke up in the morning and music got him out of bed and he wanted to write another great song. So it was really refreshing to see that and see, you know, Dave and I toured with Marky. We played guitar. I played guitar and Dave played bass for Marky a couple summers ago in Europe. And Marky's a great guy and very down to earth. And Joey was too, you know, and whenever I met Dee Dee and Johnny, they were all very, you know, they weren't about how famous they were and all that. And I've gotten bigger attitudes off, you know, a lot of the West Coast punk bands who have never done anything. You know what I mean? They act like they have a cure for fucking cancer. And they're doing us all a favor to do some interview or crawl on stage and play some shit song because they've sold a few albums to some drunk jocks on the Warped Tour. They think that the world owes them a living. And so the Ramones were very refreshing for me. You know, very good lesson, you know.
I think I'd rather be at home listening to the Ramones. I'm hanging out and getting drunk with a bunch of fucked up punks. I don't wanna be ignorant.
Covered the Ramones. Can we talk about the Beach Boys and why they're such a great band and maybe a little underrated by, you know, the cool kids?
Well, to me, I remember when my sister Heather was a writer. First heard the Ramones because we were all about the Ramones, and she's like, I got to listen to these guys. And she listened to them, and she's like, you know, they sound like a punk rock Beach Boys. And so, excuse me, that's kind of where I just love the '60s stuff. Del Shannon and the Turtles and the Beach Boys and
Leslie Gore, I read.
Leslie
as well.
Gore. I love Leslie Gore and and that type of stuff. And so the Beach Boys, I just like that spirit. And so the bubblegum. I mean, I knew Gigi Allen, you know, and Gigi and I used to love the Monkees and the Beach Boys and stuff like that. Kids think he's just this crazy punk guy on drugs that, you know, would do whatever. But yet he loved the bubblegum stuff. You know, that's where the punk rock thing, Yummy, 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 and Chewy, Chewy, and that stuff, the punk stuff kind of grew out of that. You know, Needles and Pins, the Ramones covered, or Fortune, Indian Giver. Sorry, I was going to say Fortune Teller. So anyway, the Beach Boys, my love of that stuff. I just always loved that '60s stuff, you know, so.
What is it about it exactly? Is it like a feeling?
I think, you know, that stuff just restores my faith in mankind and kind of always, I'm always walking on the sunny side of the street when I listen to like Chewy Chewy or Yummy Yummy or, you know, Happy Together by the Turtles. You know, I just, you know, it gets back to that message where I think love can conquer all, you know, in this crazy fucked up world with, you know, wars going on and, you know, it's all about greed and how much money we can get and everything. I think that little message just goes back to, you know, being in high school and being in love for the first time or something. And so that's what I always get. You know, it restores my faith in mankind, all that stuff. I know it sounds goofy, but hey, that's what I'm getting out of it, you know.
Bonsoir, Montreal. We're the Queers, motherfucker. Wanna just look in the tent. My friends are always wondering the tent. I'd rather not much anything, but what can I do?